So in this particular study that I'm interested in examining here, we are examining support for Black Lives Matter protests. And what we did near the beginning of this study is we just asked, do you believe that there is inequality between white people and people of color in the United States? So we just asked them that. And then we actually examined, so that was right here. Yes or no, do you believe that there's inequality between white people and black people or in people of color in the United States. And then we also examined their perceptions of Black Lives Matter movement, and that's these variables down here. We actually examine negative and positive attitudes toward Black Lives Matter. So one of the things that I could do is I could actually run an independent samples t-test comparing people who think that there's systemic inequality to people who do not think that there's systemic inequality in the United States. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to click under Analyze. I'm going to do Compare Means, and I'm going to do an independent samples t-test here. So I'm going to click that. Now I need to find my variable that corresponds to whether or not they believe that there's systemic inequality. That is right here. Now, I now need to define the group. So now it's important that I go back to that variable and I actually examine how this variable was coded. And you see that we're coding it as 0 equals yes and 1 equals no. And so my two groups here, under group 1, I'm going to type 0. Under group 2, I'm going to type 1. So I'm just saying that we're working with the values of 0 and 1. And then my dependent variable is going to go into the test variable box. So I'm going to examine positive attitudes toward Black Lives Matter. And heck, let's go ahead and examine negative attitudes as well. Now under options, we could look here if you want to exclude cases in a particular way. That's a video for a different time, but let's go ahead now and hit OK. And by the way, there's not very many missing cases in this data file anyways. It wouldn't matter how we handled that. So the first box here, when we look at our group statistics, we can actually see that there were 170 people in my data file who said that yes, there is a disconnect where people of color experience more disadvantage than white people. So 170 people are saying yes, 55 people are saying no. The average of those who said yes have, it looks like, more positive Black Lives Matter attitudes, so 6.9 compared to a 3.26 of those who are saying no. Those who are saying yes have less negative attitudes toward Black Lives Matter, and those who say no have more negative attitudes toward Black Lives Matter. At least we think. Those are just the raw means and the standard deviations here. Now we can actually come down to here, and this is where it actually tests, is there a significant difference between these? And we can look at either the equal variances assumed, so if we're operating under the assumption that the variances are equal, and you could test that. But I generally actually just say for people to just assume that the variances are not equal. What we're going to see is that the t's and the p-values really aren't that different. You might as well go with the equal variances, not assume that way. You don't even have to worry about it either way. So that's what I suggest to my students. So we're going to first look at positive Black Lives Matter here. We're going to assume that the variances are not equal. And we see that the t-value is 10.19. Now, typically a t-value of around 2.0 to 2.5, that's where they start to be significant. So 10 that's a pretty high t-value. This is probably going to be significant, and we do see that the p-value here is actually less than 0.001. And we never report our p-values as equal to 0.000 because a p-value can never be exactly 0. So instead we're going to write p is less than 0.001. And we see that the mean difference was, and that was found just by subtracting this minus this, and we see that the mean difference was 3.66. And then you can also see the confidence interval if you're wanting to report the confidence interval there as well. So there was a significant difference such that participants who said that yes, there is systemic disadvantage between white people and people of color reported more positive Black Lives Matter attitudes than those who said no. Well, that's all I have for today. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe. And again, let me know and reach out if you have any questions on how to run a repeated measures t-test using SPSS. Or if you're working with another stats program, please reach out as well. I'm happy to teach you how to do that too.